Hello, and welcome to Scuttlebutt, the War Movie Review Podcast. We're happy to have you with us as we take a look at films from the dawn of cinema to today. We aim to provide a raw and unapologetic review of each film's cinematography, historical accuracy, and delivery. In the process of analysis, certain details will be revealed. These spoilers are only divulged to ensure a fair assessment of each film. We head to Los Alamos this week with Roland Joffé's 1989 World War II scientific epic, Fat Man and Little Boy. As always, I'm joined by Mike A.
Hello, hello.
Mike B.
Yes, sir.
And Nate.
With a fat man in a small tub in the beginning, but that's fine.
So, guys, what'd you think?
Right, Mike's face.
Which one?
He wasn't even.
Oh, that's a low blow.
He wasn't that fat, the man in the tub, so it's fine.
No, Nathan's way fatter.
I am. Yes.
That's what happens when you only eat Old Bay.
Fat man in a little coat.
Hey! That's a great
I've
reference.
literally done that and split a coat.
Just like Chris Farley?
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, God,
I'll embarrass myself today. I bent down to go pick up a Bren case, and I fucking split my pants right down the right butt cheek. Like, just split it right down. I'm like, God damn it. Like,
Did it just
Nothing
split
funnier than that.
on your asshole, or did it go down your leg?
No, it went down my my right butt cheek, so right where the pocket is. It's like the second pair in like fucking 2 years, in like a year.
But it didn't go down past your taint. Like it didn't go down like.
No.
What'd your boyfriend have to say?
He loved it.
Quick access.
It went halfway down like my calf and all that kind of stuff. So
Busted
Shiver
the
me
seat in his
timbers.
ass.
Well, that's what I just asked you. It went halfway, so it did go down past your
Nice
taint.
pun.
I mean, maybe.
Do we need to...
How do you know? My taint could be longer than the average human. You don't know.
Yeah,
You
but
don't
it's
know
horizontal
taints are-
versus the vertical tear that you're talking
According to
about.
Joe Rogan, taints are shrinking in humans. Today, you know?
I have long of the taint.
to end the stupid already gimmicky fucking conversation, it went past my taint. Anyway, Fat Man and Little Boy. Let's
Speaking of science,
Shit. Oh shit, we're doing a podcast. Shit.
oh shit!
Okay.
All right, yeah. We're not. Yeah.
Speaking of
we hit
science,
we hit the record button, Mike B. Okay, we can't have this
All right,
conversation.
we're good.
right now.
We're good.
Yeah.
Go ahead there, clowns.
Well, I guess I'll start. I'd never seen this before. It's a nice little melodrama about
Who's beating down a dog right now?
my fucking neighbors. I'm sorry.
Okay,
They have,
all right,
They have a
sorry,
bunch of
sorry.
hounds.
Okay, that's
and
fine.
I
wanted to
they don't have dogs; they have hounds.
Yeah,
you
that's
live like in
fine.
a Scottish residence.
Well, they're like hunting dogs, and like they have like 4 of them, and then they don't do it. They just leave them in the backyard, so they just start going crazy.
It's fine. It's no big deal.
Right.
I was like, okay,
Mike's
if
got one
I
of
can
those.
hear it, it's got to be on the mic. So
Yeah,
I'll-
so they'll
I'll
do
check
that
it
for
out.
like 10 minutes straight, and then finally one of the owners will come out and be like, "Shut up!"
No, I get you. No worries. Yeah, go
So
ahead.
anyway,
Sorry.
it's okay. So I thought it was pretty good. I was entertained by it. I'm not a super fanatic on the history of this of the true story, but I thought for what it was and the time period it was made, it was entertaining. A lot of really good actors, a lot of actors who were up and comers of the time who eventually became something in this. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly as well. So this is the second time I saw it, and funnily enough, Michael, the first time I saw it was because of you.
Oh, really?
In 2020, I got COVID early on, or I didn't get the test because whatever, but I'm pretty sure I got it, and I was home from work, and you put up a post about this on one of the military like websites. It was I think War Movie Forum or something, and I was bored. I was like, I only watched that. I didn't know it existed, and I was like, oh, pretty cool.
Was it the Demon Corps scene?
Yeah, it was the Demon Corps scene.
Yeah.
Yep. And I saw that. I'm like, oh, it's very interesting. And then I ended up watching it, and I really liked it. I love the pacing of this movie. It's one of the only movies where like they do a good job of showing that there's other events going on in the background that are forcing what's going on in the foreground. And just like stupid shit, like the guy reading the paper at one scene, where it's just like Wasp sunk in the Solomon's battle, huge defeat, and just the very small ways to do it, and especially with the music too. I think this film does a really good job with that. Just again to keep that like staccato beat of like there's other things happening where you have to keep pushing. Your little enclave of scientists is important, but it has to get pushed and go along with the process. No, it's really well done, and it's really funny to have seen it now after last week's Memphis Belle, which was a year later. So these films are like right around the same time, and there's a lot of similarities
Yep.
and a little bit of differences too, which is interesting. And this film, I mean, so technically it's a war film, and I think it's a war film because it's about a wartime project that impacted everyone's lives.
Yeah, it's a war film. Yes.
Yeah, so I know some people have a hard time categorizing, like, as my grandmother would say, shoot 'em up films. Like, oh, that's a war film. It's like,
It's a
well,
debate I have with so many people about like
Yeah.
what a war film is.
yeah, to me, it's during a real conflict that occurred. It has to be set in some real tenet of history that happened to be a war film, and other than that, it's just an action movie. But no, just to finish up my quick thoughts, yeah, I really like it, and I'm glad I watched it again. And I'm really interested to see Oppenheimer because this is the closest thing that comes to telling the story. There's a million other. There's like a TV show, The Manhattan Project. I've never seen. I know it came out like 10 years ago. I think there's another one too that came out not too long ago. So they've tried to cover it a lot, but this is the one that comes closest to try to telling the whole story, beginning to end in a way. And it's well done. It really gets the points that it needs to get across. So, Old Bay.
No.
Oh, what are we doing? I'm just sitting here reading.
Oh, hold on, what? Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm like
Oppenheimer, come on.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm catching up on some
That was
some
a great
personal
reaction.
stuff. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Like,
Oh,
that kind of-
hello.
Yeah. Oh, hello.
Yeah, he was just like,
Yeah.
He closes his playbill.
So yeah. So the so this I'd never seen this movie. I've always seen the scenes, the same kind of scenes that Mike K had shared around, like the Demon Core and a couple other ones, and of course the last scene with like the whole explosion and the goggles kind of thing. No, it is. I never really quite had the chance to see it, and when I did, it struck me. I was very. It struck me very interestingly, and I hate to say it like that, but it really did. Like, I have a lot of personal connection with this, with family members being a part of this project. My great uncle was a part of the project in terms of the building of instruments for the bombs. And then my great aunt was a secretary to the photo department for the Los Alamos. So it was very, very close to home in the sense of, like, kind of getting this Hollywood-esque kind of grandioso look to it. But no, it seemed like it was. I really enjoyed it. The effects, again, I think what Brian had said, like, it very much felt like Memphis Belle, and I had a very hard time kind of not trying to be biased with this film. I think because of my ties. One of the cool things that I had a book on my shelf that was sitting around for forever that I haven't looked at in probably 10 years. And I pulled it out and I was reminded about stories and interactions and stuff like that. And my great uncle was pulled in from Princeton, and he pretty much, and I'm going this for one of the reasons is that secrecy was key. He couldn't tell anyone where he was. No one knew that he was not at Princeton. His family, coworkers, everyone thought he was at Princeton. And what they did was they faked him being at Princeton, sent all of his mail to Princeton, and then sent from Princeton to the places he wanted to send, and then vice versa. And his girlfriend at the time, my great aunt, they wanted to get married, and he had to ask Oppenheimer special permission just to go get married. And he was able to go. He couldn't leave anywhere, and the only way they were able to do that was he had to fly to Princeton to get married. And then she came back with him and got a job in the photo department and did all that. So, and they were actually first people other than the military to have horses at Los Alamos too, which I thought was very interesting. But no, it's again, I mean, I could talk forever about it, but it's very it's very interesting, and I it's hard to not be biased, but I thoroughly enjoyed the whole entire movie as like a whole. I think. Might be.
You think or you did?
I did. I don't know. It's hard. Like there's some Hollywood tropes that I didn't like about it.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but I
okay.
I physically like I don't like want to speak shit for it, and like I probably like how Brent, I guess to chime in with Brian said, it's like with Oppenheimer coming up, this might go down in bias because Oppenheimer might take over, or it might not. You know, I don't know. So it's very interesting.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree that this film touches on a subject that to me is very sensitive, not because I have any family ties to it or that I know of, but because it literally was a project that changed the world and brought us into a new phase of existence as humans, right? And it was a massive project, and it was a bunch of people that were assembled to create this device, as they said, you know, in the film. And it's funny because they don't really touch on Oppenheimer's like background a lot. And my voice just cracked there. That was great. I'm going through puberty again. Maybe it'll get lower. Maybe it'll get more sexy. But no. So Oppenheimer,
Mr. Connery.
They most people think because of like I've listened to Joe Rogan about this whole thing, Operation Paperclip, and all this shit. They think that Oppenheimer was like pretty much extracted from Germany, and then did this. No, that's not the case. Like if you look at the history of Oppenheimer, he had been studying in California for years, and then a little bit of back and forth and whatever, but he was living here for a long time. That's why if you listen to him talk after the project and everything, he speaks very, very clear and eloquent English. And it's a misconception, and B, it's kind of a thing that they never touched on in the film of like, how did Oppenheimer get here? Why was he here? Why did they hire him? Why did they pretty much force him into this project? Well, that's never addressed really, which we can talk about. But that's the one big issue I have, because this movie's largely based around Oppenheimer, right? And the general, what the fuck was his name? I forgot. He was a colonel and then general. But anyway,
Leslie Gross.
Gates.
Yeah, General Gates.
General Gates.
Okay, yes.
His real name was Groves.
Oh, was it Groves? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean it might have been different for the movie, but
Okay.
Yeah.
But whatever. So but anyway, they try to portray things in a certain way, and I think they might have gotten close, but it was there's a lot of issues that I have with it, which we'll talk about in this podcast. But yeah, the film itself was okay in my opinion. So we'll go from there.
Well, yeah, let's just jump right into it. Oppenheimer is probably one of the most brilliant people ever born or created, whatever you want to say. Like he was just, when you read the stories about him, it's amazing. And some people describe him as a walking nutcase. He would smoke 3 or 4 cigarettes at the same time.
Yeah.
And he was just so incredibly smart that like his wife basically was his caretaker, because the guy was just out there, and not out there like in a crazy sense, but like in a mad scientist kind of way. Like when you're just fighting problems, like when people think of Tesla and his lab and like doing these kind of things, like that's really how Oppenheimer was, just constantly chain smoking and doing
It's
these
like
things.
ADD on
Like, blah, 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 blah.
steroids.
And you do see a little bit of that in this, where like they're like, oh, can we go to the canteen to talk about the implosion idea? And like you see like the crazy in their eyes, but because they're onto something, and like how you could just see the dots getting connected. So he's an amazing individual, all around.
That's how a lot of really brilliant people are those, where they're so brilliant in one thing that they're lacking in everything else. You know?
Yep, exactly. They literally like are a walking basket case. But
Yeah.
like you said, they have this one amazing ability where like you just if you nurture, you get a bomb. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's just incredible. So he was an amazing individual, and as far as I could tell, he was really brought on board because they needed somebody to run the scientists. You know, because as the general Gates or whoever it was, he was like they're all prima donnas. They're all, you know, he did not want to deal with these scientists. So he needed to find somebody that he could trust and who could be the circus master, basically, of it. And along the way, he found Oppenheimer. And just to go back a little bit, I do love how the film starts because it does start exactly how the original story starts. The Pentagon is being finished, you know, and he wanted to go to the Pacific to have a combat command. He was in the Corps of Engineers, but he was promised if you build the Pentagon, then you'll be able to go overseas. And it's a great line they haven't. Well, I built the place, so I guess I'll eat it, fucking with the cake. But so in the real life, it's funny. He got the job on a Friday and was really pissed. But he had this mantra where it's like, your orders. If you have orders, you do it to the best of your ability. So Saturday, he got security clearances. Monday, he had already secured 10,000 acres in Tennessee to build a uranium plant. Tuesday, he was already in California. Like within a week, he got so much done in the Manhattan Project. It's like fucking insane. And within 2 months, he basically created all the infrastructure across the country to make uranium 235, so that they could, you know, in 2 or 3 years, because it's going to take a really long time to make enough fuel, they'd be able to build the bomb. But like before they got a lot of scientists and everything involved, he just set up all the background shit. He's an amazing person in his own right because he just had the ability to build these huge organizations and get it done. And as a side note, something interesting that popped up, he was also in charge of building all the Japanese internment camps for Japanese Americans during the war at that same time.
That's fun.
So yeah, so I'm like, that's kind of interesting. That's part of his legacy. So that's like the background of it a little bit. And for Oppenheimer and stuff, they do glance over certain parts of the story or like dumb it down a little bit. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But no, it's interesting. He was just basically brought on to, you know, be in charge.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because you're saying that like he was a very eccentric kind of guy. He was what you say, like basket case type. You know, his wife was basically his caretaker. They don't. I don't know. In my opinion, anyway, it's not. They didn't really seem to show that much of that in this movie. He's depicted more as like this, like, you know, kind of elegant, brilliant guy. And I mean, he's like stressed the fuck out the whole time. But like, I don't know. It didn't seem to me anyway that he was like kind of, you know, that mad scientist type thing that we're talking about. So that's one thing that maybe in the Nolan Oppenheimer with Cillian Murphy, maybe he's going. That's more how it's going to be.
So,
yeah, it seems like they are going to go that route because of just the feeling from the trailer and just knowing how they're going to have to just tell the same story but in a different light. I feel like they're going to go more of that, and plus with Nolan's track record of making Cillian Murphy play someone psychotic with a Scarecrow, it might be it might be the thing that they go.
yeah, it's gonna be really interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
So
I already have my IMAX tickets for opening night, so I'm really
I'm gonna
looking
go
forward
see
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking 11-mile long, like reel. It's pretty crazy.
damn.
Also, to touch on it, this is really well cast. Like we were
Yes.
saying earlier, like Paul
I-
Newman does a great job.
I love old ass Paul Newman. I mean, I know he's famous
Quality.
for like like, you know, through the 50s and stuff like that, but I love it once he became an old man and like he did stuff like this and like, you know, Road to Perdition and things like that. Like
That was a
I
great.
just love
That was a great movie. Yeah, Red Dead
it is
Redemption.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
And no, he's great in it and has some great lines in it, and I love his way of speaking and shit like that. So yeah, no, and like I
Well,
said, a lot
his
of
way of
up-and-comers with
speaking,
this. Mhm.
I'll argue with you on that. He tried to be more gruff than what he needed to be. I don't know if that was direction or if that was just what he thought.
Are you saying compared to the actual guy he's playing, or to just your personal taste?
Sorry, I cut out there because we got
It's
some
okay.
storms rolling in. But like, what'd you say?
I said, are you saying that because is it for your own personal taste, or the actual, like, compared to the actual guy he's supposed to be?
No, it's my personal taste.
Okay.
So it's my own opinion. Like, I don't. I think when people say they spoke gruffly, like for a historical figure, I think creative liberties get taken a little bit too far. Not necessarily in this case, it wasn't taken that far, but it's like you're an older guy. Your voice is going to be more raspy, right? It's going to be more worn. But I just think it was kind of like on The Thin Red Line with
I was just thinking. I was like, you also critique Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte, yeah.
Yeah.
And its thing is like just speak natural, like your natural voice.
Well, there, son.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it was just a personal gripe that I had with, and that's one of the only acting critiques I have for this is just that. And it's really whatever, but like again, it's been in multiple films, and I think that people should just talk in their voice, and it's also up to casting to cast people who just when they talk normally they sound like that, the whatever character they want to emulate. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but like, yeah, it's in my head, but like I think the gruffness could have been taken down a notch because it sounded forced a little bit. That's it. But yeah.
I think that John C. McGinley in this is really funny, especially because he's coming out of Platoon.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
I love John C. McGinley. I think he's an extremely underrated actor. I mean,
He's very underrated.
yeah.
Scrubs. There's so much that he's.
Oh
so
my
amazing,
God.
You know?
He was really
yeah.
good in this too, I thought.
He was very good in this. He didn't overdo it. He didn't try to oversell it. Yeah. It was perfect.
Have you guys seen Talk Radio, the Oliver Stone film? It's the one he did right after Platoon. John C. McGinley, he plays the DJ in it. And,
Oh, really?
He's awesome. He's awesome. He's awesome in everything.
I'll
I've
check it
seen
out.
him in.
Yeah. There's really not a lot that. That's right. He's in Point Break too.
Yeah. He's
Wow.
also in The Rock, Brian. Remember that.
See, Nate, I passed it. We're gonna have to watch that in 2 weeks.
I know you were so fucking out.
Describe your last shit with the title of a movie, The Rock.
The Rock.
The Predator.
That's an elegant string of pearls, by the way.
You usually mine is there will be blood.
Yeah.
Like, hey. So
There will be blood.
yeah, that's usually mine. But anyway, go ahead.
I totally forgot that Laura Dern was in Jurassic Park. Like,
What, you forgot that?
well, it took me a second
like
to.
one of the
to
main
realize.
Michael,
I
know.
not everybody's a fucking autistic nerd like you are with film.
Wait. Who's
Okay.
Who's Laura Dern? Which one's
She's
Laura
the
Dern?
nurse in this movie.
Yeah.
She's Ellie Sadler in Jurassic Park.
Wow. Okay. Hold on.
Jesus.
Wait
Hold
for a
on.
second.
Hold on.
Your mic just did something, Mike.
Okay, sorry.
Your mic went back to the old mic.
It blew the fuck out.
That's what it used to do. That's
You
what
just
it
blew
used
out the
to do.
fucking fourth
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah, I was about to say, what the fuck just happened?
It used to do that all the time, and then it reversed and went negative, and that's the first time it's gone
Okay.
positive.
It's like
in a
that old
while.
Bose commercial with the guy in the chair.
Yes. Holy
Is
shit.
it okay
Blew
now?
out,
Is it okay
You're
now?
okay now.
Okay.
I mean, we'll let you know if it happens again.
Thank
but
you.
Mike-
I know you will.
It sounded like you were screaming at the top of your fucking lungs, distorted.
No,
It was
Yeah.
So Laura Dern is. Laura Dern. I'm sorry, I couldn't
No,
experience it myself.
it's fine. You'll hear it.
Laura Dern is the nurse in this, and she's Ellie Sadler in Jurassic Park. So
Yep.
yeah,
Oh.
she's like one of the main
Right.
characters in
Right.
Jurassic Park.
Who played Oppenheimer's wife, by the way? She looked so familiar, I couldn't place her. And I know if I go to IMDb, I'll find it, but I just was curious if you guys.
I'm on Wikipedia right now. Bonnie Bedilla. I don't even know who that is. She's been.
Maybe
in a bunch
she
of
looks
stuff.
too much like Jillian Moore or something, and that's why I think.
She's in Die Hard. It says.
That's why.
Okay.
She's John McClane's wife. That's why.
Oh, that is her. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Oh
why.
fuck.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
she
The
is.
moment you said Die Hard, it connected.
Only one person can make.
because
only one person
because
can
she
make
doesn't
people
have
that mad.
she doesn't have the 80s hair and the red like.
No, it's funny.
man
Her
suit.
picture on Wikipedia is her from like the '60s. I'm like, so she looks way younger.
I think she stopped acting by like I think the mid 90s. So
Oh, she dead? Let me see. No, she's still alive. Okay.
she dead.
Well, I don't know. Maybe she's not acting because she died.
Check her pulse.
Sometimes that happens. It's like, where's that actor? I haven't seen him in anything forever. Oh, he died 10 years ago. You know, something.
Well, but no, it was very well cast. I was very surprised.
Yeah, the
Like you said, a lot
actors
of these
they
people get
they
so
did a really
famous
good
later on.
job, except for again, it's just like Paul Newman. I don't know if that was the direction or whatever, but like that's it. That's the only gripe I have.
Sorry.
But
Go ahead.
okay, penis, are you done?
Sorry. Yeah.
And what's
Just
the-
making up your own little Paul Newman song?
You want some salad dressing over there?
No.
Got some salad dressing for you.
Newman Zone.
Newman Zone.
Sean would know what I'm talking about.
He lived in Connecticut for a long time. He started like this
Who
whole.
gives a fuck about Connecticut? Stop with your
He
shitty.
he started a bunch of charities that are awesome around the state, actually, that are still soluble and shit. So he's a great person.
One
Start
little
shitting on
shitty
him.
state in the union. One
2
little shitty
hours by
state.
90 minutes. You know, we made all your guns, asshole.
It's the longest state if you ever want to get to Boston. Yep.
Joe Rogan, not to bring him up again, but he's got this great thing. It was like, Connecticut's a fucking nowhere place. It's a fucking highway between New York and Boston.
It really
It's
is. It really is.
I've
And
looked at
well,
a map. Yeah.
More people in the north and
when
rich
you're
people in the south.
when you're on the highways in Connecticut, that's how it feels. But I will admit, like when you get off those highways, it's actually pretty nice. So
It is. So
you
But
got
it's like,
hot
how many people do I know, like, in the industry, like, they're from Connecticut? And it's like, how
many.
in the fuck are you all from that shitty little state?
yeah, two of the fucking guys in Reveille found out from Connecticut. Joe and
John.
Yeah. So getting back on track here.
Yeah, we're doing this thing again. Yep. But yeah.
Yeah. No.
So,
John Cusack.
John Cusack, now he's based on a couple people. He's not actually like a real guy. I did know that going into this.
Yeah, they did change the events around a bit. And something that was interesting that I found out today, actually, that they didn't touch on in the film, and that I had no idea about was, so if you watch the film and you notice how late the dates are getting, and they still don't really have anything done, it's like the Battle of the Bulge. They still are like trying, and I was very surprised by that. I'm like, you know, because I really am interested in the story now. And the problem that they had was that they came up with the idea for the gun, where they were going to shoot some uranium-235 into another piece of uranium-235 and then have it explode. Well, the problem was that it was going to take 3 years for them to get enough uranium for one bomb. And plutonium would melt the gun barrel. So to make plutonium work, they had to figure out an implosion, because that would crush it. And the movie, they kind of just like, they didn't mention that there was 2 different fuels. They were just like, oh, well, the gun's not going to work, so we have to go this way.
There you go. Yes.
And that's the reason, because they had a different combustible material, because they were not going to have enough uranium. It was basically going to be a $40 billion project for one bomb that they couldn't test because they only had one. So they had to figure out a different way to do it. So they figured out this implosion idea to make plutonium work. And that's why they ended up doing the Trinity test with the implosion, and it worked. And later on, I'm not sure which one, but one of the bombings was a plutonium implosion bomb, and the other one was the actually gun bomb that they made that they spent 3 years making with the uranium-235. So the first time that Fat Man was used or tested at all was when it was dropped over Japan, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, that's the
could've been
thing.
worse.
So yeah, I do know that part of it. So Little Boy or whatever was uranium-235, right? That was the first one that was dropped on Hiroshima. And then 3 days later, this is an argument we can get into, but like they didn't have to necessarily drop that bomb on Nagasaki, but they did because they just wanted to see if plutonium, because you needed less of it, a lot less of it, to get a bigger effect. They wanted to see if that was going to be something that was sustainable. And so that's why Little Boy was uranium-235 and Fat Man was plutonium.
Completely wrong. There was no reason they were going to drop a second bomb for just a test. They had a third bomb ready to go. There's a rumor that Truman bluffed they had a third bomb. They had a third bomb ready to go, and they were going to produce 2 more plutonium bombs for September and an October bombing. So I don't know where that test idea came from, but no, they were strategically going to go through them. There was no idea of just doing another test, as far as everything I've read in the history that I've learned. So, no.
But the Japanese, after the first one was dropped on Hiroshima, they were like, okay, we need to start talking to these guys.
Only Hirohito. Nope. Most of the government was diehard, didn't want to surrender.
Yeah, that's
the
what I've
second
read
bomb
too.
dropped on the 9th, and then Hirohito basically wanted to end the war because he didn't want to lose the country. The Japanese have been trying to surrender for 4 years for the whole war, but they said that you have to keep the emperor as the seat of government, and the Allies kept saying no. every single time. Unconditional, 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 unconditional. So in August of 45, Hirohito was like, I don't give a shit anymore. We can't have our country get destroyed. Because by that point, anyway, Japan didn't have a merchant
Fucked.
navy. Fucked, literally, you know?
You
And
get the
they're even talking
Soviets.
about it.
You get the Soviets.
Well, yeah, but
You know?
Japan was, basically a nation of 70 million people that were going to fight to the death or starve. And they had no means of really bringing in anything because Japan is a very rocky island with not too many places to live on the coasts. So they were just going to bomb the shit out of that motherfucker until they didn't have to. But there were all these plans to keep on going. And just to touch on this now, it's very interesting because, the reason that we got into making the bomb was because the Germans had a nuclear program. And they were very heavily into it. There's a very famous movie we'll get to eventually, The Heroes of Telemark, which is the raiders that went to Norway to destroy
heavy water
German heavy
facilities.
water plant,
Yep,
the
yep.
H3 facility. And there's the one funny story of that where they stole some before they blew it up, and they put it in a German canteen. And along the way, they ran into a German patrol, and the guy asked for a canteen, and they gave it to him.
You can drink heavy
H3
water. Yeah.
No, it kills you, as far as I know.
No,
But-
it has to be very
but-
concentrated, but which is hard to get that much. But yeah,
but
you can drink
they,
it.
They ended up losing it, which is just kind of funny. Some random German fucking had some of that. There is some very limited evidence from credible sources that the Germans did test the dirty bomb in 1945 on Soviet POWs around Peenemünde. There is nuclear activity in the ground, and there's Soviet POW testimony of being basically, hit with the dirty bomb. It wasn't an efficient bomb like the West, but there's some pretty actually interesting things coming out about it that they might have actually done it. And it wasn't really found out until like 46 or 47.
Yeah.
Once a lot of the Operation Paperclip guys had actually turned sides, and they think it was kept secret because a lot of those guys went into our nuclear program and everything. So kind of like the whole NASA program with Werner von Braun and stuff. But the Germans might have actually been the first to detonate a bomb.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Not a complete bomb. And there's actually some evidence, too, that the Japanese might have had their own program where they tested it on some ships. That's very, very far out there. But the German one theory is growing by the year.
Also,
It's
I
very
just want to
interesting.
clarify for the podcast and for you that the whole thing I said about the second bomb in Nagasaki, that's my opinion. That's not a fact. That's just my opinion from what I've researched. So it's, it from what I've seen, I think they just wanted to see what plutonium could do in a combat setting versus using that much uranium, having to refine it to be uranium-235 from 238, and all that shit. And that's my opinion. But I did know that they had a lot lined up and that they were ready to use them. And it's just like, oh my God, like
The core for the third one ended up being taken out and used with the Demon Core. And so that part of the movie is very fascinating. It's a true story, but it happened later on. I think it happened in October of 45. And still, it's amazing. And it happened just like it did in the movie. The guy was playing with 2 screwdrivers, and the mask went subcritical because it fell on itself.
yep.
Lewis slaughtered.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he literally told everyone, trace your feet, take off your medal, and he did the math, and
Within
was
a
dead.
few days, he was dead. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's
But
the
yeah,
thing
it
is
did take a lot longer.
Plutonium, though, is something that you have to have. Like now they know this, but like at that point they didn't. Is you have to have that if you're going to get it to implode. It has to be in such a fucking controlled environment, or else literally a pinprick on your skin, you're dead. Like if you get exposed this much, like just a little tiny thing on your hand, you're fucking toast. Because it's so much radiation that's so concentrated and it moves so quickly through your body. And that's why when they fuck with plutonium now, it's in such a controlled environment with such protective equipment, that it prevents that from happening because it's so volatile. So
this is a good point just to talk about this for now. I think that a lot of people know more about it because the really amazing HBO series Chernobyl came out. But, basically, when you're exposed
Not great,
to this,
not terrible.
when you're exposed to such high levels of radiation, you basically cease to exist as a human being.
yep.
because what the radioactivity does is it knocks part of your DNA out, so basically your cells cannot replicate. And the reason that you're human is because your cells replicate, or that you're a living being, let's say, and over time, parts of your cell structure loses itself as it regenerates, and that's why you die of natural aging, because there's a point where your cells can't divide anymore and multiply, and then there's nothing left.
Yep.
That's natural life. But what radiation does is it basically shoots these invisible bullets everywhere that go through
And
your
destroy.
DNA, your cells, and destroy it, so you're not a human being. And they really show that very well with ALS. Or sorry, not ALS, the radiation syndrome in Chernobyl, because you're basically falling apart. It's literally what's happening, Like you're not you're dead. You're just decay. Like there's nothing left of
But
you.
you're still technically alive, but you're decaying as if you were dead, but you're alive.
The systems work, until they fall apart. Like even they show it in this with the Michael, like he was just, having all this crazy shit happen, and like the doctor was like, oh, he's dying from the inside out, and that's exactly what happens. It's like you basically cease to exist, but you just decay. That's and it's very simple. It's very hard to understand because you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't feel it, But sometimes they say you can actually feel it depending on the dose, but it's just crazy, It's just this thing that just you have a high dose. Usually within an hour, you get really sick, violently ill, you throw up, and then there's a delay period between a day or a few months, and then it hits, and then you fucking die. It's just
some
insane.
people can recover though, but like they're not the same after that ever again. Like there are people like with Chernobyl, what happened? There were some people who were exposed to insane amounts of radiation, but some did I'm not saying normal, but like one or two people were able to recover from it, but like still to this day they're fucked up. Like they can't get injured or anything like that. If they get cut, they can't heal or something like that.
Yeah, it's all these different cancers and crazy shit, and that's the one thing again they touched on Chernobyl. It's like the guy that was getting the cancer and stuff, and it's like it all affects you in some way. And I forget how many liquidators died after the fact from Chernobyl, but they did the horrible thing where the Russian thing was ×5, or the communist thing was ×5. It was like not safe to be on the roof of the reactor for more than 4 seconds. So they said it was not safe to be on the roof of the reactor for more than 20 seconds. So they would have these guys that would go out and they would, they would put lead on and everything. And they thought that they were following the rules, but no, they just they lied to them, literally. And what are you going to do? Even the robots couldn't operate in they had space robots from the Soviet space program that were getting destroyed because the radiation was so powerful. Is that graphite?
Just to chime in on thing, I'm feeling very, very much like I don't know that much to talk about it.
No, it's totally fine. Like I don't know anything either. So
yeah. Well, it's funny and unfortunately this is where my mind goes. The best way I could describe radiation poisoning to people is imagine you're the jellyfish senator from X-Men 1 and you're disintegrating into water. That's the best way I can describe that to people who don't want to go through that graphic stuff. And then number 2, and it was in my head, and now it's gone. Never mind. It's gone.
Chernobyl was good, although I think with some of that stuff, like particularly like the fireman, like from what I've heard, that the way that like they made him look in the show was a bit over the top, and I've seen like photos and okay, yes, Nate.
I'm sorry. I remembered what it was now. There was, and I don't know if it's real or not. There was someone who posted on forums saying that they had bought radiation surplus suits and apparently had worn it out and then started feeling sick, and they tested the suit at the hospital, like, because he was like, well, what, you're like heavily radiated, like what's going on? And apparently that suit he got in Ukraine but doesn't know the history, and that's they're thinking it came from or contaminated by Chernobyl, and it's like literally like the 1980s like hazmat suits you see the guys running on the roof. And I don't know if I doubt that's real. That's the internet is the internet.
It sounds like an anecdote.
Yeah, it's just like, and he's like, well, I'm fucked.
Well, no, those suits really quick, Brian, and then I gotta get to your piss so you can talk away.
I'm Nate, but it's okay.
No, I'm because Brian's got his hand up.
Oh,
Penis,
sorry, I'm
you
not looking.
fuck
Sorry.
stain. All right, but like, no. So most of those chemical NBC suits, Seaburn suits, they're not going to protect you against radiation. It's a feel good. It's like a gas mask, right?
Right.
Well, okay, you might be able to breathe, but your
But
skin.
wasn't that what? And then we'll get back onto World War II radioactive shit.
No, but this all does tie in. This all does
right.
tie
But
in.
didn't Russia use those as like fake suits for the guys who were cleaning up?
Yeah.
Yes and no. They would cover them with armor, with lead armor, literally, and everything. You gotta. I'll send you some documentaries you should watch.
It's
Yeah.
still not the amount of lead that they had on them is for that amount of radiation. Okay, yeah, sure, it'll protect you against very minor radiation, right? Like depleted uranium, all that shit. Like, okay, but if you're talking that much, that dose, like what we're talking about with this film, that's an insane amount of radiation. An insane.
Right.
Right. That lead suit, it's a peace of mind thing that they're gonna give you and be like, you're gonna be okay, and you're not at all, because that can punch right through that. And again, like with what I was saying about the plutonium, if one speck of your body is exposed to that amount of radiation, you're fucked.
It's nuts to say this a lot, and then we'll move on. Is that one of the things that I thought was very interesting is that both my great uncle and my great aunt didn't die of anything from cancer or anything crazy. They both lived very long lives, and they died of natural causes kind of stuff. And it's nuts because a lot of their constituents did not. There's a lot of history, especially in that book, of a lot of these people being racked with cancer. Horrible, stuff.
Oppenheimer died of cancer eventually, and also, so we could touch on it a little bit, but they say it in the movie, but there was a big problem because when they were doing the test, which they were basically forced to do because of the Potsdam Conference and everything, there was this big weather system moving through, and long story short, that spread a hell of a lot of radioactive material throughout the Midwest, and a lot of farmers became sick after that. And it's not really talked about, but like in August and September of 45, there is a wave of radiation that occurs over the Western United States, and it's linked to the Trinity test.
Right.
So
I mean, well, this is also like the same guys this is the same military or whatever that also put those guys in that color footage that you see just getting hit with like radioactive dust and then going up and touching like everything. Going up and touching the impact zone on the debris from the vehicles. And it's just like, fuck, those guys are dead.
It
like,
was, the what was it? The uranium girls, like all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
with
like the compasses and stuff.
The radum girls or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yep. They had to lick the.
Yep.
Yeah,
they sharpen the point, as they would say. They would lick with the tongue.
There's a famous photo of the woman with a fucking like tumor in her jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it went.
I'm gonna go take a piss really quick, and when we get back, I'm just telling you guys this because I'm gonna probably forget, but like it's something that should be discussed. Is cancer rates in the United States have gone up tremendously since this started. Whether that's just them being reported, known about, or whatever, and
we'll touch. I have a point for that too. So
So really quick, Mike, can you Google? You're going to probably be stunned by this. How many atomic and nuclear tests have taken place in the United States since 1945?
Yeah.
You used to be able to go to Las Vegas and fucking watch them. They had hotels and everything.
Yucca Flat. Yeah, when you learn about Yucca Flat.
Good so tight.
I totally forgot what point I was going to say too. But so I'll put this in here. This is fucking hysterical. So I watched the film last night. And then I just went to like watch the clip again because I really do like the bomb sequence of this. I think it's very well done. I love the music, but somebody commented something that fucking just took me out of it and made me laugh so hard. That they have the whole bomb scene and everything. It's very well done and everything. And the first top comment with like 4,000 likes is, "What is that fridge flying towards us, sir?" And I'm like, yes,
dun,
yes.
Dun, dun, dun,
promoted by peers.
dun,
Yeah.
dun. God,
So obviously, the next
Fucking-
scene I watched was right.
About
fucking hate that goddamn movie. Ugh.
I don't know. It's fun if you like making fun of shit. You know?
Well, okay, we'll keep it light because until Mike gets back to we talk about cancer deaths. Is that that movie's fine. I can take that movie on the chin for what it is. It's just I'm very glad they did the new one, and Brian's seen it. He says it's good, so I
It
trust
sucked
him
for
on
the
that.
first hour and 45 minutes. It was a woke fest, and the last 45 minutes makes it worth watching.
Good lord,
it's
that's
a really
a long
cool
movie.
twist. Yeah, it's 2.5 hours.
I've always said with that film, like, when people are up in arms about it, it's like, it's so stupid. It's like all the Indiana Jones movies are stupid. Like, it's dumb fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
it's-
when have you looked at Temple of Doom?
Yeah,
like
they're all dumb. Yeah, like
There was an 80s ripoff of Indiana Jones, and he was based in the South Pacific. I have to look it up.
huh.
But they had like 3 or 4 movies that were like sea movies, and he was like trying to steal like Indonesian relics from the Nips or the Japanese and shit like that.
Did he wear a
And it's
fedora?
yeah, like it's literally like a knock, and he
Like
like
a-
flew around in like a seaplane
Oh wow.
and all this shit.
was he
and
white
long-
or was he like Filipino?
He was a white
or
guy, yeah,
something?
but it was
Okay.
like late 80s. But long story short, in the 90s, he diddled a bunch of kids. And then, like, he's still in jail. And he's
Oh,
like this
no.
horrible sex offender.
Do they call him Diddle Jones?
Maybe, I don't know. But, like, it's pretty funny. So there was
What
a
a
knockoff.
twist.
I gotta find it right now. But it's like, it's pretty funny.
I knew about Young Indiana Jones
Yeah.
and that whole like spin-off. That's all on Disney Plus now.
I've never
I've
seen
been
that.
I've been going down a nostalgia trip with that. You should watch it. It's not bad.
Yeah, isn't he in
Um,
World War One at some point in it? Like when he was.
No.
I thought he was like he was like in his like 20s. He was supposed to be in World War One, at some point, like when he was younger.
Maybe.
Okay.
Possibly. That TV series took a lot of liberty.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I'll have to find the Diddle Jones though. That's something I'm.
Yeah, I gotta look that up. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
funny enough, I said that. Hold on, wait. So there's actually an insert in this book of my my great aunt talking about the photography department, and she worked with Jillian Mack, who is the I think for the photography department. And one thing he kept saying, and this is relevant, the phone connection was really bad, and he would just yell from the other room. Didn't matter who was there. Be like, my great aunt's nickname was BB, and I'd say, BB, diddle the operator. And apparently that means like call them back, like get them back. And so the fact that I kept saying Diddle Jones just brought me right back to that. So yeah,
That's where it comes from.
that's where it comes from. Diddle Jones.
It all circles back around.
So my great aunt was diddling people, so that's what you can get from it. So there you go.
Dude, there's
Jesus
a lot of Indiana
Christ.
Jones ripoffs. Holy shit. A lot of Italian
Looks like I gotta
ripoffs,
go
right?
down a rabbit hole now.
The Ark of the Sun God? The
Yeah.
Hunters of the Golden Cobra?
So,
Well, you
so
guys-
what
well,
you're
you guys are
telling
talking
me
about
is
the
we have a
gold-
lot of homework to do now.
We do.
Well, you guys
I
are talking
still
about the
haven't
young
found
Indiana
Diddle Kid
Jones,
ones.
the one Michael was talking about. Yeah, he fought for the Belgians in the First World War.
Oh, okay, wow.
Oh,
I've never seen this show, I just-
okay,
I
you
just
said
vaguely
you
know
said
about it.
okay, you said the Belgians. That vaguely brings back a memory. from
Yeah,
that
he's
show.
wearing a Belgian helmet. It's
yeah.
it's actually a French
Yeah.
M26 helmet that didn't come out for fucking years after that. But like, yeah,
Oh god. Okay. This is a very quick thing. I have a coworker who I worked with for almost 17 years, and he's very old, and his father was in World War One.
oof, yeah, he is really old then.
He's like in his
Holy shit.
80s, and his father had him very late in life, and he was in World War One as with the Belgians for World War One. That
They-
jogged my memory. we'll go into that when we once we get a movie for that. I have some
They-
wild stories with that.
There's still one woman in the United States who's receiving a Civil War pension from her
Yep.
father. Yep.
I thought
Yeah,
she
so-
died.
Oh, this was as of 2 years ago.
Yeah, I
I
think
thought
she's
she
dead.
died. I
dead,
think she
but-
died like last
Okay.
year.
Yeah, I think she died,
was.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her father, it was like something, and had her very late in life.
The wife
Probably
was
late
like
in life.
19 and he was like 90 something.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Diddled me this.
The pipe can still pass fluid.
So your thing was how many nuclear tests, weapons tests have been performed since 1945?
In the United States alone.
In the United States alone, 1,054.
Fucking Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When was
did
the
you guys know
latest
that?
one?
Did
When
you
was
guys?
the latest one? Does it say?
The
They
latest
stopped in
one.
like the late 90s.
1992.
Yep.
That's insane. They were underground testing though, I think, but from
It
the
says
60s on.
it says underwater as well as the atmospheric and space.
Well, it's like I just read a fascinating book about the Test Abel, Test Baker, the Bikini Atoll test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1996,
yep.
Insane
Oh my
footage
God.
there, yeah.
Oh, I have this great book. It's called Who Can Hold the Seas, and it's from Robert Hornfischer. Unfortunately, he's passed away. Amazing historian, naval historian, and it's all about the Navy from 1945 to 1960 in the very early Cold War period, and it's fascinating. But he spends a lot of time on that 45 to 47 period of like nuclear experimentation and stuff. And long story short, the Navy was like, you can't sink ships with nukes, and everybody else was like, no, you can. So that's why they had the tests in Bikini, because they're like, can you sink a fleet? And they figured out that if you nuke a fleet, the sailors can operate for 48 hours, and you'll probably lose half the ships.
And you're
But
fucked.
the attrition rate will continually go down, and it will go up. But they did find out that you can operate ships that have been irradiated, but it's going to kill the crew. So it's
Right,
it
so
won't
that you have
technically
no
sink
ship.
the whole fleet, but you'll kill the. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
That's where you get those
But,
was it hardtack and woohoo tests and stuff like that with the famous
Yeah.
footage of the water going up with the ships around it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, well then they did the big quadrilane test too. That's the famous one. It has the dome on it now and everything. Because like again, a lot of those bombs weren't perfect. They're kind of dirty bombs because they were tests and like a lot of them didn't explode right and they spewed a lot more material out than they should have. And that was also again we can talk about a lot of this, but every single war correspondent memoir I have from the Pacific that ends up in Japan in September of 45 either towed the government line of, oh, there was no bad radiation, or they didn't listen to MacArthur because MacArthur tried to he was in charge of the occupation of Japan, and he basically sequestered Hiroshima and Nagasaki off from anybody, and they were like, it's fine. And all these reporters started going there, and this one guy, he ended up in Hiroshima, and he ran into a Japanese film crew from NHK, which is the Japanese news network that's still around. And they were there for 3 weeks before filming all the damage from Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all this crazy shit. And he just got all their footage and just told the world about it. And then they tried to cut all these guys ties for, it's a very long, crazy story, but they basically were like, oh, the bombs were so hot and they exploded so much that no radioactive material was put into the atmosphere.
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Yeah. And that's completely wrong. But that was the government line. They said that no, it completely combusted everything, and that's impossible and not true. And even those surveys are crazy, because again, I could talk this for a long time, but they had to figure out if the bomb exploded at the right height. So they went around all the cities and they used the shadows on the lines of things, and they were able to use calculus or trigonometry or whatever, determine exactly the height of the bomb where it exploded from the shadows, the radioactive shadows that were left on things. It's just crazy.
But all those guys fucking died too.
Well, yeah. There's also. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So, not to get political, but earlier we talked about the Ukraine and everything that's going on. With some Chernobyl shit, whatever. There's a story that's true about there was fighting, unfortunately, in the inclusion zone last year, and Russian soldiers were ordered to dig trenches over nuclear waste, and I think a whole battalion of guys got violently ill within a week, and they were sent back to Russia to some of the same hospitals that specialize in radiation that they actually treated Chernobyl patients at, and nobody really knows what happened to them. But they literally ordered them to dig in the exclusion zone.
I remember that. That is 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
That's factual. That's not bullshit. That's real.
Yeah. It's fucking insane. And then now they say that the Russians have mined the cooling pools that separated it. But no more politics. It's just interesting how, 80 years after the fact, people still playing games with this stuff that's clearly horrible.
It's not politics. It's a fact of what it is, and
Yeah.
that's why I controversial opinion. I oppose any kind of atomic or nuclear weapons being used. Unless
let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's get through the rest of the movie, and then we can talk.
No,
about
but here's the thing:
legacy.
is why I oppose
I
it
have an opinion
is
too.
why Oppenheimer opposes this, because he knew what was going to happen, and so did a lot of the other scientists and the researchers and people involved. They knew what this was going to do, and they had reservations, and they weren't allowed to
hold that nugget for like 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to that. So,
All right, it's 7:22
because I
right
just
now.
want to. Well, it's 8:22 here.
No, I'm gonna hold
But
you to that. But
no,
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because I have some points I want to talk
Yep,
about.
good.
But yeah, we'll just finish up the rest of the movie. You know, the Trinity test is great. You know, it's really cool how they do.
Have any of you
like-
guys ever been there?
No.
No, I want to
No,
go.
I haven't.
They open it twice a year.
I haven't gone, but I have a buddy of mine who used to work a lot in the government, and he got really into Trinity site. He has like some of the glass, the sand glass that you can pick up from the site.
Trinitite.
Yeah, like all that kind of stuff, and he was like really into that, but he went in that, and he's always giving me like a super offer, and he lives in Alaska. He's like, if you ever want to like get a full blown like know everything, just let me know and I'll try to meet you there. Because he's been like studying for like years. Yeah, it's super cool.
I'll piggyback off that.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. I was just curious if you guys had ever seen it, because
No.
I've seen pictures of it, and I obviously want to go for my own family tie, but I just haven't. I haven't.
The closest
been.
I've been is I've been to
Yeah.
White Sands, New Mexico. I've never been to Los Alamos.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been
So-
west of Colorado, so that's where I'm at. So
Yeah.
Do you know why they chose Los Alamos? Oppenheimer had a cottage out there, and he loved it. And he was like, "Well, that's a really good place. It's secluded, so that's why they did it."
Oh.
out in the
Just
middle of
fuck it
nowhere.
up because I love it.
well,
Yeah.
it was definitely something that was a lure, because my great aunt and great uncle never left. Like they stayed in that area the rest of their lives.
Some people love the desert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love deserts. I mean, I'm from it, but I mean, I love that kind of lunar look of like when you just fly over a desert and you see that nothingness.
I have yet to experience it. As funny as that it is to say, but whatever. I hear a lot of people that live there that say it's clean.
I was
know.
just gonna say that. I was just gonna use that
Yeah.
adjective. Like it's very clean. It's very
Yeah.
you know what the fuck is out there, because where I'm at, I've got corn here, I've got trees here, I've got it's chaotic. But the desert or like semi-arid places like that, you know what it is, you know what's around you, and it's clean. It's like it's easy, and actually it's not that bad. Like it's not, as long as you can get water, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Not too long ago, I went up through northern Idaho, which is all like giant fucking trees and big giant forests and stuff. And I was complaining about it, and my girlfriend was like, "It's so beautiful, don't you love it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but like I want my rolling hills and sagebrush back."
Yeah, in the background, Michael DeCeased Panzer's taking over Tunisia.
See, that's so funny you say sagebrush, and all I can think of is Red Dead Redemption 2 and collecting
See,
a
I
ton of
love that
fucking
shit.
sagebrush.
That
Yeah,
is
sagebrush.
That's my
yeah.
environment. Yeah.
Dude, it's like because I've been to eastern Montana, like northeastern Montana, and it's the same environment that like Mike and I have talked about before. It's like it's very flat, just kind of rolling hills with very little vegetation or trees, and then sagebrush and all that shit. But it's like you can see forever, and you know what's around you, and it's insane. So Mike, yeah, when you in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
You get to see, like, because you've been here in the winter when there
Yep.
was no vegetation,
Right.
but you get to see it's very vegetative.
Great.
And then when we go to the crack fields of Ohio, and I take you to fucking New Britain,
yeah, just-
Oh well, that's gonna be fucking.
Ohio can be
hilarious.
summed up in
Back
3
into-
words: crack, crime, and trains.
CCT.
That's where I
Yep.
live.
Yeah.
Closed circuit television.
Well, no, we have meth. It's not crack. So it's meth, crime, and trains.
Meth in the mountains.
Yeah.
That's the rhyme.
But anyway, no, this is let's tie it back because the location that they chose was chosen for a reason.
You got 5 minutes before you get back to your old conversation, so we better speed it up.
But no, it's really amazing how it all came together, though. In the end, how again, Battle of the Bulge happening, and they really don't have anything working, and that's when they brought in some more scientists, and that is when the communist spies entered the game, because the British had some scientists, who a lot of them were Europeans or whatever that ran away from the Nazis or whatever, they were communists that were working in the West, and then they were scientists, whatever. But basically, there was a group of scientists that came over from England that were not vetted because the Brits were like, "Don't worry, they're fine." And one of them was this guy named, I think, Albert Fuchs. And he ended up being the guy that gave the Soviets the bomb, bit by bit, over the whole course of the whole program. And obviously, there were a lot of other people that were involved in it too. Stalin knew about the test before they mentioned it at Potsdam, which is just insane. And within 4 years, they'd had their own bomb. But that's where it really, started. As they were trying to figure out this plutonium problem, they created another problem,
Yep.
And it's just crazy to think, like, basically in 6 months, they figured out all the issues. And there's a very high chance that they could have fucked up and not have made the bomb, obviously I hate what if history, but it's just very interesting how close they were. Because looking at it from afar, you're like, oh, the Manhattan Project, they were on their ball the whole time. They knew what they were doing. And it's like,
no, it didn't.
No. They built the infrastructure really quickly, and then they just started refining uranium for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then
enriching uranium. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Because it's a crazy process. You have to do they said molecule by molecule.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
It takes forever. And they needed 45 pounds. And I think to do that would take 3 years. And something very interesting is that, so when Germany collapsed in May of 45, one of the first things that we found was a lot of the German refined U-235. And we found like probably 200 or 300 pounds of it because they just didn't get around to using it, or supposedly not all of it. And that was brought to the States and put into Fat Man that ended up being used in Japan. So there was some German elements of their nuclear program that ended up in the American nuclear program.
Fat Man was plutonium.
Or Little Boy then.
Little Boy,
but
yeah.
It's pretty insane. There was a bit of knowledge stealing because it happened just at the right time where, that could have a real impact. Just goes to show, how close the Germans were in a way to doing the bomb.
Well, and also, but before we get into that topic in 2 minutes, because you gave me 10, here's the thing is they did bring this up in the film of like, this is good for energy. You can take uranium and plutonium and convert it or use it to convert, whatever into energy, electricity, whatever. You can do that, and we've done that. Obviously, Chernobyl is the most egregious example of a very poorly run fucking nuclear energy plant. And then 3 Mile Island, which was also that was very controlled immediately.
That's my fucking territory. Ugh.
Yeah, but I don't know how the fuck. I don't know if it was sabotage or whatever the conspiracies. Anyway, there's 2 examples of nuclear power plants going under out of the hundreds around the world, right? So you can use this for good, and they did mention that in the film, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but they also were weaponizing.
You forgot about Fukushima too.
That
Fukushima
was not the fault. That was not the fault of the actual.
The safety systems failed though. That wasn't a man. But still, I mean, what are you gonna blame it on? But those are the three nuclear power plant disasters that have occurred.
Damn you, Poseidon!
Chernobyl, in my opinion, this is all my opinion. Chernobyl was a very human fucking fuck up, right?
Completely human.
3 Mile Island, I don't know if it was sabotage or whatever. So it happened, but it was also contained very well. Fukushima, what do you mean?
Nate, we'll talk about 3 Mile Island another time.
Government conspiracy.
These West Coasters.
Look. How do you explain me? So there you go. Anyway, moving on.
We got these fucking tumors in your hairline.
That's why you're losing your hair.
That's why. That's why I'm losing my hair. And it's all growing out of my knuckles and everywhere else.
Yeah,
listen.
Top of my head.
Think about where that river goes.
Yeah,
but okay.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to.
So Fukushima,
it's Pennsylvania Dukies and Nate.
I don't blame anybody except the engineers that built the infrastructure around it. That's it. I don't think that was a nuclear power problem. It was because they actually did shut down most of the reactors when they knew this was happening, and then they fucking beat feet and then whatever. But anyway, so they knew at this point that this could be used for good and for killing. They knew that at this point, and they chose to do both. What the fuck are you laughing at, Nate?
I was gonna say just like anime, but then the joke died. So.
Oh my god! Don't get me fucking.
Anyway,
So
we're a minute
So-
over your talk, so.
yes, we can jump into it now. So no, I mean the film, just to sum it up, it does a really good job of telling the whole story, and it's a slow burn with a big bang. That's really my way to do it. It's a little bit boring, like towards the third act, but it picks up
I
towards
just wish
the end.
they,
the last 30
I wish they
minutes.
would have like cut out a lot of the unnecessary scenes to like actually show the process of how this happened and how the project happened.
Cut out the fat.
Yep.
It's an intellectual drama though, so it's hard. It's like
Yep.
you could see they tried to Hollywood it up and make it like with sports and everything. I see
Yep.
Nate, and then like just make it
Well, remember 89, 89, 90 Hollywood. And, I feel like now we're going to get that kind of picture with Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think this movie in particular, I think it does a good job in that sense, but it is dated in its formula. And I feel like that people, what we want to know and what we keep talking and kind of circling the drain about is more of that in-depth detail and that process, because that's we're interested. But versus 89, 90, they just want a drama based around an event that everyone knows about.
So, top 5 grossing films of 1989: Batman, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2, Rain Man, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So this is the world that this is in.
Honey, I
It's,
Shrunk the Kids was 89.
Yeah.
The very first one,
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus
Yeah, the first
Christ.
one, not the really bad 95 one that I watched with Tiki Man.
Oh, that's the one that introduces Tiki Man?
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
god, dude. That's
Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves or whatever.
No. Honey, I thought that was.
Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves is Tiki Man, and the
Okay.
first one's just the kid with the kids go around and fight the fucking
Ants.
puppeteer ants
Okay.
people.
I never,
yeah.
I never thought I'd say this, but I gotta watch that again soon.
I just watched it like a month ago, both of them. So yeah.
It's Rick Moranis. You're
End
going
up
to lose
watching
either
it
way.
in Ohio.
You don't like Rick Moranis?
Wait, why? Wait, whoa! Yeah, you can't just drop a bomb on Rick Moranis. Why don't you like Rick Moranis?
What is this,
Rick
Nagasaki?
Moranis
Yeah.
can suck a Taco Bell fart straight out of my ass.
Why?
Whoa.
Why?
He's a fucking Canadian nerd.
He wasn't
That-
a commando.
Wow.
It's
Okay, Canadian nerds, you're hated by Mike. All right.
Yes.
Sorry, Devin.
So,
Yes!
so
Devin.
you were all for that guy who came up and sucker punched him on the street when that happened. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Uh,
You can't attack Rick Moranis. He gave up acting for his
So,
children. You
okay,
can't- you can't.
Legacy. There's a lot you have to take in consideration. There's that famous quote that, scientists asked if they could do it, why, or they wanted to do it so bad that they didn't ask why they should do it, but how. I fucked it up, but when you're focusing on something,
Jeff
you can
Goldblum
just
says
forget.
it in Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go watch Jurassic Park. It's a great movie. So,
Yes.
Yes.
who's also got Laura Dern?
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this fucking thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there you go. There we go. Our plot.
As Mike
But,
throws his
sorry about
microphone
that.
across the
Circle around.
It's a
Yep.
giant
Yeah.
spike
Yeah.
on my wave now. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting story, but I mean, my opinion can be summed up in the fact that the world is a different place after July 17th, 1945,
Mm-hmm.
than
Yeah.
it was before, for a million different reasons. The bomb was necessary to end the war, 1,000%, in my opinion. The bomb saved my life. It saved my father's life. It saved anyone that was in the Pacific's lives. It saved at least 20 million Japanese lives. It was very pivotal to ending the war. And when you take in consideration what happened in the fall of 1945 and into the spring of 1946 of what would have occurred during Operation Coronet and Downfall, then you understand that it was the right thing to do. The proposed landings on Kyushu Island in November of 1945 basically happened during the same time that a massive typhoon struck Okinawa and destroyed Halsey's fleet. So if the invasion had gone through, half of the Marines and the Navy personnel would have been either just killed or had seasickness in Okinawa. before the invasions even happened. And there were more typhoons throughout the 45-46 season that just ravaged the coast of Japan and Okinawa. Secondly, the Allies were at the end of our wits. The Marine Corps was going to have to dissolve most of their air wings and 2 divisions to make up for projected losses in the invasions of Kyushu and the southern islands. Honshu's the north one, but the 2 main islands of the south.
Mm-hmm.
We were out of steam. 6 years for most of the world and 4 years for the Americans had brought us to our very jagged edge. We were not the military that we were in 1944 or 43. We weren't that strong. Also, most of the replacements at this point were brought up from stateside schools. A lot of the Army guys that ended up in the Philippines to go attack Japan were guys that literally had trained troops for 4 years and were pissed off that they had to go overseas now. We were an army at our wits' end. If we did go into combat with Japan, it would be worse than the worst case scenario than you could imagine. Not for just the Allies, but for also the Japanese home islands. So, taking the whole picture into effect, and these are things that they couldn't plan for. Nobody knew that this massive typhoon would end up striking Okinawa in November. You know, hindsight's 2020, yes, but the bombs were necessary to end the Second World War. After the fact, that's a different case. The way that the bombs influenced culture and everything, you know, that's a different story. The Cold War is very interesting. That period, the 45 to 49 period where the Americans are the only people in the world that can destroy anyone, and you're at our whim, you know, very fascinating part of history. But as far as the end of the Second World War is concerned, all the statistics and facts, we needed the bombs to end the war. And that's just the truth of the matter.
The one thing that I will chime in on this is that I am of the same belief as well. I think one of my most fervorous debates ever in college was why we needed to use it. And one of the things, not to repeat everything Brian said, but even more than that, in just 2 aspects, is that one, I believe if you look at the island hopping campaigns and you look at the estimations from the United States intelligence of what it would take to capture said island or said casualties, they were almost always horribly underestimated, and they were almost always were quadruple, if not more than that, the amount of casualties and the amount of days it took. If you take, let's use Iwo Jima as, or even Okinawa as a example of how dug in everyone is, more of Iwo Jima than Okinawa, but Okinawa is a different kind of thing. I can't even imagine how entrenched a Japanese force, and especially a Japanese ideology, would be in Japan homeland invasion. Not to mention that the intelligence had estimated, I think, 1 million casualties was their estimate for invading Japan as a whole. So I, not to repeat everything, but I wholly agree with Brian in that it's hindsight 2020. Just World War II alone, I feel like it was the shock and awe to force a quit, because it just would have been just horrible. I don't like what it brought on for the rest of the world and the rest of our lives and the problems we face now. That's a whole different conversation, but that alone is, I think, the reasoning why I think it was needed. So,
yes, I've heard the same numbers and everything, and the estimates and the percentages and everything like that. I understand. I totally get why they made the decision to do that. But as Brian said earlier, the Japanese military was, and the people themselves were fucked at this point. They were starving. They had minimal to no resources. Either our intelligence failed or we learned it ex post facto, right? Okinawa, I think, here's what I think happened. is Okinawa was so fucking brutal and so disgusting, and it was just such a hellacious resistance from what remained of the Japanese, the IJA and the IJN and everything, that the U.S. government and the U.S. military, the higher ups, said, well, this is how it's going to be on the Japanese mainland if we invade. And then all these numbers come up, they're projected and everything, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that the numbers on both sides would have been what they projected, because they based it on previous battles when there was a just Brian, this is a good
No,
thing.
we're good. No, I know.
Yeah, okay. So I don't think that those were necessarily accurate because of, I mean, honestly, the Allies did not know how many people and how many supplies and or resources the Japanese had. So I get that. But little fun fact I'll throw in here. Did you know that every Purple Heart since World War II that's been awarded by American troops in whatever conflict were minted before the invasion of Japan that was predicted?
Yep, they made 1 million Purple Hearts.
No, they made more than 1 million. They made a metric fuckload, like a few million, and those are still being awarded to Iraq and Afghanistan and like whatever the hell conflict we're fucking in right now. They're still being awarded, and they were minted in 1945. So, I think my opinion is that they overestimated what it would have taken to actually hit Japan with combined forces and do a land invasion. I think they thought that it was just going to be a wholesale slaughter. And, here's the thing is, it very well could have been. I'm not saying that it couldn't have been. I'm saying I think they jumped the gun on using these kind of weapons. I don't want to say prematurely because it wasn't premature. It was very quick. But, I think they jumped the gun for the future using these weapons to try to end this in a different way than they could have otherwise done. And I know it's very controversial. I've had this discussion on live streams before on my YouTube channel, and people are like, oh, you fucking, you unpatriotic piece of shit. And it's like, whatever. You can say what you want, but that's just my opinion. Because I do know, hindsight's 2020, and I do know what happened after that, what it triggered, what the world went, the route the world went down. But even at the time, if you were just taking all that shit out, I think that was jumping the gun, if it makes sense. So,
first off, fuck anybody that says you're not patriotic. Patriotism has nothing to do with this.
No, I don't care about those comments. Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. First off, there's no reason. Thank God America killed
Sergeant York was an amazing person.
Oh my lord.
No, I don't have it on hand, but there's a very fascinating book I read this year. It's called Commanding the Pacific War, and it's all about USMC generals and stuff. And at one point, they talk about how they're pretty sure the math that they did was wrong for the invasion of Japan. It was 20% too light of casualties. There actually would have probably been more than what they were doing the math for. And Okinawa was a very flawed campaign. It was run by General Bruckner, who was a piece of shit. Literally a piece of shit, who fucked up the Attu campaign, and then he went down to New Guinea. And you know how well the U.S. Army did in New Guinea. Then he ended up commanding these troops on Okinawa. And the more you read about the battle, the more you found out that he was literally just throwing American soldiers into artillery for no reason. There were tons of times where they wanted to outflank the Japanese on the coast, which was the Japanese actually did at Bataan and everything, to try to flank the Americans and stuff. They kept trying to do that in Okinawa, and they kept getting rejected. So Okinawa was a very bad case study because it was very bad leadership, and the guy ended up getting killed. There literally was an order before the battle from Nimitz saying that you're not allowed to have any insignia on your helmets at all. And he had huge bright white stars on his helmet. And the day he was killed, he was standing on top of a hill overlooking Japanese positions in the sunlight. and they're pretty sure that his fucking stars glinted. He was also next to a battery of Shermans that were firing, but still, that's what attracted the fire.
So would you
They
not
didn't
say
get him killed.
that the higher ups that were not there saw
Well-
the stats and made a decision based upon that?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that first off, you cannot use Okinawa as a basis for the Battle of Japan because it just was a very badly
Okinawa was in
run
Japan.
campaign.
It's the southernmost island in Japan.
Well, it's actually part of the Ryukyu Islands, which traditionally wasn't part of Japan until the 1840s. But anyway,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
at this time it was part of Japan, but you can't really use it as a case study. They were at the time, but Iwo Jima is a better case study because it was much more.
Okay.
It was the biggest. The Japanese call them attrition battles. Where after Tarawa, it was you
Yeah.
fucking bleed them dry.
Yep.
That's what you do.
Yep.
And so they would have these attrition battles, and they kept getting worse and worse and worse. But Okinawa is this really funny case study of very bad generalship in
Yeah.
a very heavily defended. Bruckner is just an asshole. Read about him in Atsu, and you'd be like, why did this guy exist? Why did he get fucking so many Marines and Army guys killed for no reason 2 years later? But I digress. My grandfather was Okinawa too, so I have some feelings.
Make a movie about that guy.
But one day. But anyway, he'll walk into a mortar show. But what do you call it? No, it seems that the casualty reports they were saying for the invasion of Kyushu and the proper island or the home islands of Japan were too light in 1945. Looking at them now with the Japanese perspective and the US perspective, there probably would have been 1.25 million casualties instead of 1 million. The projections were too light.
But
So-
how can either side or anybody definitively say that?
Just by looking at all the history and all
The
facts.
projections,
Again,
though, right?
If you want to know more about the subject, you got to.
I'm not challenging. Don't.
Oh, I know.
You
I'm
don't-
also
you don't do that.
paraphrasing.
I'm not challenging you.
yeah.
I'm just questioning.
I know.
So
But that's the thing. There's so many fucking factors that you have to take in consideration. But the biggest one is that you can't deny, if you really look at the history, is that the West could not sustain a campaign to take all of Japan. We just couldn't. We were at our wits' end.
could
kinda like the-
could
well, I'm not
could the
gonna bring up
Japanese
politics.
have put up an adequate defense though in the state that they were in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The plan was to basically have the Marines form a small bridgehead, and then all the forces in Kyushu would attack it. If all the forces on an island throw their weight into 2 or 3 divisions of a bridgehead, it's going to collapse. There were 25 million armed men on Kyushu.
Armed with
And
what? Though?
also, well, you've seen Last Ditch sagas. They were piling up fucking everywhere. The other thing, too, is that the argument is that, Nagasaki was a huge port. It was a very
Yeah.
important military
Yep.
thing. They made the Yamamoto, the Musashi, and a bunch of other very important Japanese battleships and
Yep.
ships there. It was a naval station. And even Hiroshima was a huge military hub for the
Yep.
area. You can compare these things to Dresden or Hamburg or any of the really bad bombing campaigns.
Yep, I
Obviously,
know.
atomic weapons are a different category, but it was what was needed to end the war. We were at our very limit of offensive capabilities, even though it doesn't seem like that because we won. We stopped just short of what would have showed the deficiencies of the Allies.
Right.
And, then we're thrust into a world where America, for 4 years, had the thing that no one else had. In 1949, the Cold War officially starts. So,
Right. And so yeah, the argument also is, the Soviets, they would have gotten it, at the same time, because they were researching and everything. And there might have been more
Fuchs-
losses, but I don't know.
Fuchs was of the idea that the guy that was the communist that gave the Russians it, is that he thought that if one person has a monopoly on it, then they could hold the whole world
Yeah.
at their will, which is true to a point. But having two sides with the same weapon is even worse because now it's mutually assured destruction. Not saying that one
Correct.
is better than the other, but
No,
it's
exactly.
this
Yeah.
whole can of worms.
And
And
so yeah.
outside of the 45 perspective of the use of nukes, definitely is wrong. And every single centimeter, millimeter of this planet has been touched by radiation since July 17th, 1945.
Yeah.
Steel production is a very big open air style of production. You cannot use steel that was made after 1945 in medical equipment because it will throw off all of the very important medical instruments. Pre-45 steel is an amazing commodity that is very rare and very expensive, to the point where scrappers are stealing warships all across the Pacific to get pre-45 steel. This bomb, the whole atomic program, has infected humans, animals, everywhere from Antarctica to China to Europe with background radiation that is 4 times higher than July 17th, 1945.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a completely different age.
Yes.
Every single part of this planet has been touched by radioactivity or, substances in some way, shape, or form since July 1945. So it definitely is a Pandora's box.
Oh, it definitely
closed.
was.
It definitely changed everything, and it's propelled us to where we are now. But in the context of August 1945, it was justified. In my opinion.
I respect your opinion. I do understand it. I'm always going to be the odd man out. Like, of every 10 Americans that you interview that actually know the history of it and whatever, and like all that shit, I'm going to be the one the one outlier.
There was.
Well, Mike, you're obviously not patriotic enough. So.
Oh boy.
Well, why don't you tell me if you're such a patriot? Why don't you tell me? Yeah. Yeah.
There's a great
When I was the governor of Minnesota.
They took a poll. Sorry, Mike.
There's a great 3-hour video on YouTube that discusses this very thing. I should send.
Yeah, and there's a billion of them and everything, and I've caught a lot of flack on live streams for saying what I just said, and it's
behind every blade is a rifle.
Well, that was bullshit. He never said.
No,
that.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. Like it.
Behind every blade of grass, there is a rifle.
Yeah.
So here's a great quote from The War Beat Pacific, a great book about reporting the Pacific. When reporters interviewed returning veterans, they found little sympathy for the enemy. I only hope we can get a load of them bombs, announced one spokesman for a large group of Southern California veterans, and use them quickly. Those people who are raising objections because of the destructive power don't know what is going on in the world, and if they could see what the Japs are doing to our American boys, they wouldn't do any kicking. Truman proposed another justification. The Japanese, he declared, began the war from the air in Pearl Harbor, and they had been repaid manifold. Only 5% of respondees to a poll in 1945 opposed the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and a significant minority wished the United States had dropped more A-bombs on the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
I like that though, because it's like those guys who say that sort of thing, we need to use tons of those bombs. Like, they don't know anything about radiation, or they didn't know what the fuck any of that was.
No idea. Nobody did. Again, well, it was so hot, it burned up all the radioactive material in the atmosphere, so there's nothing.
Right.
It's like lie.
Right.
That's
the thing is
also trying to stop the truth again.
Also, dude, we have been involved in the war for 4 fucking years, and we've been losing a lot of guys, and the world just seemed like it was fucking turning up. It's like, okay, we've got this. Oh, let's just drop more to just end this. And I get the sentiment. I honestly do. I understand it. It's not that I'm just one-sided and I don't understand, but it's like, I don't know. Truman had to make the ultimate decision to drop those bombs. He was the one that had to sign off on it, and I don't know. And
thank God he had the balls 5 years later to go tell MacArthur to fuck himself when he said, if we drop 17 bombs along the Yalu River, we will make a nuclear corridor where the Chinese can't attack us through North Korea. That was MacArthur's plan.
Yeah.
Fucking look it up. That's real.
Right.
That's
No.
real.
And that's the thing is here's the thing is it's just, again, like you said earlier, it opened Pandora's box, literally. It brought us into an entirely new existence, right? Like you said, there's radiation in literally everything. And then how many tests had they done since then that they're underground, a lot of them. Most of them were in the ocean. But that's just the United States as well. If you look at how many fucking nuclear tests and atomic tests have been done. And it's like
Well, China, India, United States, Soviet Union, Israel in quotes. What are
Pakistan.
the other nuclear nations? Oh, that's right. That's a great one.
And
Pakistan,
North Korea.
India.
France,
Oh, yep.
the
yeah.
UK.
Mm-hmm. So there's 7. I think there's 8 nations that have.
I'd love to
and then-
learn about the Soviet Union. I know they had they were the ones who did the Tsar Bomba. And
Yep.
yeah,
Yes.
So it's
Mhm.
like
Up in the Arctic Circle, but still the radiation.
I have a good documentary on that. I'll send it to you.
That fucking
There's some
thing.
cool ones.
the biggest explosion
You
ever.
There's a website
Yep.
you can put into. You put in location. You can pick the bomb of what you want to detonate in that location. You can see the effective areas of that thing.
So-
if you really want to like make yourself super paranoid, not sleep for a day, there you go.
Take it up the next notch, Nathan.
Mm.
After the Cold War ended, all the Soviet targets came out. And because my state was so heavily DOD, yeah, no way. I was totally saturated.
Same with me,
Every
yeah.
fucking corner. Oh, yeah. The DC to like Boston corridor, nope. And then it goes to Chicago, a little Pennsylvania's okay, and then it goes all the way to the nuke facilities like in Idaho, all up in your territory.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
Nebraska, South Dakota.
Well,
If you really look
in
at
the
it, it's
in the
crazy.
early
there
60s,
was an ICBM silo in my hometown, like just south of my hometown.
really. In the early
Yeah.
60s in eastern Idaho, there was a like a little Chernobyl with a reactor core like malfunctioned.
It's 3 guys.
Yeah,
got killed. I think I
3
read
guys
about
got
that.
SL2 or SL
Yeah.
something, and
It's because they didn't know what they were doing or something. I read.
Well,
There's some crazy.
the control rods in it had to be done manually. You couldn't do it you had to you had to do it with your hands, and the guy who was doing it just like shoved it all the way in and just. Oh, no, it was the opposite. He pulled it.
It got jammed.
Well, he pulled it all the way out. The control rods, because the control rods kill the reaction, and he pulled it way too far out, and the entire thing just like vaporized inside and it killed them because all the steam shot out, and killed them instantly.
Made a poison
One
core.
of the guys was one of the control rods came up into the guy's crotch and pinned him to the ceiling. Like that's
Let off some steam, Bennett.
yeah. So
Anyway, back to the film. Well, for you guys that are listening, we went on a fucking tangent.
yeah,
But
Well,
this is what we do. This is what we
happens
do.
when you
Yeah.
talk. This is a subject that you have to talk about.
Yeah,
Everyone
it's
has their
it's
own opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
and
It's
so you have to.
it's a very deep and very impactful subject, and this was a film that tried to convey the first known test of an atomic weapon. And yeah, so it's all this shit does tie in, and it's like, 'cause it's so fucking terrifying. Like, think about it nowadays. The world has the power to kill everything. We don't need an asteroid anymore. We don't need a fucking comet to fucking hit us. We can do it ourselves.
There are some amazing Cold War movies about realities of mutually assured destruction. There's one from the 60s that the name escapes me, but it's about it's an English one, and it's about what happens. There's the one in America, The Day After Tomorrow. Or wait, am I getting that wrong? Or shit, it's from the late 80s. It was the big one. But the very famous one that everyone needs to watch is Threads. It's the British one that's fucking insane. Like, it's 90 minutes and it shows people going about their day, and then, you have 4 minutes before when the you get the warning and it strikes. And it's just insane. It shows like what will actually happen. And the craziest part that I loved is so tensions are building, whatever, people are kind of getting, there might be something. And there's this town council that they go into their bunker underneath the town hall to get ready to communicate so if something happens. Well, the bomb strikes, they're stuck there.
Oh, there's
They
no
can't get out.
communication. I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, they're trapped.
Yeah.
And they die because they can't escape from their bunker. So the rest of these people are dealing with Holocaust and everything. And the people that are in the position and have the stockpile to do the thing when the thing happens are literally crushed to death.
Yep.
And can't save themselves. So it's like, even from the very beginning, and there's some great part. Like, there's a guy on the toilet who is just using the bathroom and gets killed. It's just interesting, and it just goes to show, that the world that was created from these 2 bombs is a fucking nightmare. But it's just the reality.
It's absolutely it's terrifying. But like, I don't live in fear of that because it's like, you know, if it does happen, we're all fucked. And yeah, like you said, 4 minutes. Like where I'm at, like if they hit the target in the cities that are, you know, about an hour west of me, yeah, I'll survive the initial blast, but I'm gonna be fucked by radiation because of the way the wind goes. It's gonna blow it over to me, and I know that. And it's like I've accepted that, but it's like Jesus Christ, man.
Have you read the book Where the Wind Blows, or When the Wind Blows?
No.
It's done in the style of a children's book, but it's about this old couple experiencing that, where it's written in like I think the 70s or something, and it's nuclear fallout happens, but because of their lack of knowledge on the whole thing, they just kind of sit there and slowly die from the exposure.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the
Threads even gets into that.
Saddest books you could ever read.
Right.
And at the end, they're like, you know, radiation will not leave the human placenta for 700 years. We'll be in a fucking Middle Ages and everything. It's crazy. The American one was called The Day After, and that one was so insane. Like, I have a friend that was growing up at the time, and they showed it in school, and they had to like get a waiver signed, and they had like told the parents about it, what they were doing, and you know, it was a very big thing. This is the age of the Wolverines, you know, and like that, you know, just the craziness of Able Archer, 83, like the 80s. I mean, obviously, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a very, very close point of destruction in the Cold War, but in reality, the 80s was way more closer to the brink than the 60s was, especially with Able Archer in 83 and everything.
Do you remember that
crazy.
bomber that had, what was it? It didn't have like a nuclear bomb, and it almost like went down or crashed, but the bomb didn't go off or something.
Oh yeah, I forgot where it was, but yeah, in the U.S. Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like there's another bomb that's missing
like
off the coast.
Yeah.
One crashed in somebody's house, and they recovered it. It didn't have a detonator in it, and the other one crashed in the ocean. They don't know where it is.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. No, that's funny.
Oh yeah, it's there's one missing off the coast of Georgia.
You would think after all this time we would have some way to locate it at this point.
Robert Ballard, the reason he found the Titanic was because he was on an operation to find out where the nuclear torpedoes were from the USS Thrasher, which was a submarine that had a very unfortunate series of events that imploded because it went too deep in the water on its test dive, and it had nuclear torpedoes on it. And he actually was paid by the Navy to find it, and the deal was that he would have some time to look for the Titanic because he wasn't that far away. And they gave him a week to find it, and he found it. So kind of interesting.
And I remember that was the whole cover for him. Why he found it was because
so it was all tied in together.
They didn't want the Soviets to know that they had lost a nuclear sub.
Yep.
Can we go verb?
So yeah, I think we now have made it to final thoughts because there's an IMFDB, but it's the bomb. So there it is. Anyway, so. I mean, there are some tanks in this, and the original they did use tanks as well for just for the armor to stay inside while they were doing tests. You know, they didn't use the cannons or anything, but and Nate too. I looked into some cool history. Mm-hmm. They had some really amazing camera rigs. They had like 5 IMOs on like a 2x4.
Yeah.
And they would
so
film
hold
stuff.
on, let me show you this picture real quick. I was gonna show you off pod, but hold on.
Ooh, very cool.
That's the guy who was the head of the photography,
photo section?
for that, but that was his rig. And he
Very
made
cool.
them. He specially made high
400
speed
foot mags. Yeah.
He specially made let me just read this for you. With high speed cameras he designed and built. It was used for photographing explosion experiments.
Damn.
So,
I know there's
high speed cameras in the film age. So
there's one photo that a guy took. It's for the right exposure rate for the Trinity test, and that's the famous color one that we all see.
Right.
Everybody else was like, happened so fast they fucked up their cameras.
Oh, my great uncle had said, and then we'll jump into that. He commented on the explosion as well. It was here at the end where it says, he said, my initial reaction was that it was the end of the world. The light was so brilliant, you had to put your hands up in front of your eyes, but your eyes were still burning.
There's some stories from the tests that they did in Bikini Atoll, because they in the late 40s, as crazy as they sound, they tried to temper soldiers to the use of atomic weapons on battlefields. So they would bring them to these tests, and they would have them lie down and do all the things and protect themselves, so that they get used to it. And it fucked up these guys. Like, people would have panic attacks and cry. Like, and they said the biggest thing is that you would put your hands in front of your eyes and close them, and that because the X-rays, you could see your fingers and like your bone structure.
We're
and
probably
everything.
thinking of the same documentary. It's just the ones the guys on the ship.
Well, there's two of them. So there's the British had a lot of tests, and that was the documentary I saw that from. But part of the Bikini Atoll test and stuff, unfortunately, during one of the tests, there was a bunch of fallout that went a different way, and it fell on all these guys who were destroyer escort men. And there's this great documentary from the late 80s, and there's this guy in it who they're filming from like my perspective. It's right here. I was in the DE, whatever. I was part of the tests, and it's a good 45-minute documentary. And they pan out at the end. His fucking thighs are the size of elephant trunks, and he's got elephantitis, and he's dying of this horrible fucking cancer. And he's like, yeah, fucking, we got covered in the white foam and everything, and it's like happened a lot. A lot of servicemen, unfortunately, were exposed to this, and nuclear vets is the thing. That 45 to 50 or 60 period where they still did the open pit tests and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys got affected by it, like we were saying. So we've gone on long enough.
Yep.
Final thoughts. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Nate, because you're
Fuck
connected
it.
to the project.
Yeah.
Nate, go ahead.
I'll keep it quick because it's the same thing I had at the end of this film, and I think it was some of my hesitation of even talking about or how I felt about why I felt biased. It's not that I don't feel biased about it. I've realized it now is I feel fucking depressed. Like going through it and just realizing that that has it is a very, very, very huge subject to undertake and talk about without being conflicted by personal beliefs, by this, by that, for me having my own view of the whole in time, but understanding the path it has taken the world down, and the constant conflict. One of the things I constantly say when not to get political, as we always say, but when the Ukraine-Russian conflict and all the whole NATO-Russian standoff, it's like, God, I wish, this sounds naive to say, but it's like, I wish nuclear weapons were not on the table at all. I wish they just didn't exist, because this would just be so fucking cut and dry. They're unprepared. They fucking suck. The amount of tech that we have is great, blah, blah, blah. And that's not because I'm biased, but because just cut and dry. But then you have this fucking like boogeyman that's like, well, if you don't fucking do this, we're going to fucking bomb. And it's like, fuck, So to take all that aside, but talking about the movie itself, I mean, I am in awe of what my family connections did on the project. I am in awe of what I learned, unfortunately, post my great uncle's death. I was like 14 when he died, so I wasn't really quite aware of the levity that he did. And then my great aunt, my great aunt who just unfortunately died a few years ago. It's like I wasn't very close to that side, so I didn't really get to have the chance to talk to him about this stuff. And unfortunately now I have to do it, through textbooks and kind of, dive into my own kind of, interest into it. And it's very, very interesting to see the people that were willing to dive into the unknown, to tackle this phenomenon that they were hoping that would end the suffering in their sense or in their way of doing that. But, I think the only person kind of realizing the toll was, obviously Oppenheimer, whether that was 2020 hindsight, posthumously, whatever. I feel like he was the only one who kind of knew that. And I think, I don't know. It felt very powerful, even though the movie itself may not be that precise in everything it does. I think it nails it down pretty well. I didn't feel like I don't feel like it's a waste of a movie at all. It has its flaws. It's 1989. Its pacing is a little slow. The third act always kind of drags on. The effects are before ILM, which you can't judge it on that. but it's again another reminder of why ILM and Jurassic Park '93 was so great. So you don't have Matt painting on goggles.
Yeah, I saw that
But
too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but and then light a cigarette, but you're going. So
Mac
but
and cheese.
yeah, but no, I mean, I really, I really, God damn it, I just caught that. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it, but it didn't blow me out of the water either. So I'm gonna give it an 8 point. I'm gonna give an 8 out of 10 Screamo Gibsons. I think it deserves that. Until Oppenheimer potentially blows it out of the water in terms of just more development. But I think that's where Oppenheimer is going to succeed, is getting a lot more in depth than the 1989 drama formula. So, Mike A.
Yeah, I like I say, entertaining. And yeah, some of the I don't know, some of the love story things are kind of but as we've mentioned before, when it comes to some of these kinds of films of this time, and such, those liberties that are taken, but overall, I thought it was pretty good at a kind of simplified version of the story, if you want to say that, of the actual thing. And yeah, I'm glad I saw it. So I'm not going to go on as long as Nate did, but I'm gonna
What a prick.
I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Sorry, it's not that I don't have as much as, it's just that when I was listening, I'm like,
I mean, his relative didn't help destroy the world.
Right, yeah, so anyway.
It's probably my only movie I'll actually have a family connection for, you dick.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm just stating a fact.
You should be very proud of your family trying to destroy the fucking Earth.
Also, your Mike did this wonderful thing where you're like, I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Nice, yeah.
That was a good replication.
That's what it sounds like, huh?
Yeah.
It's got some gain.
It's a
Nate's the audiologist.
It's got some gain problems.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. Let us know.
Yeah, there's not a lot more I could say about this movie. I mean, it definitely has some farb. The Jeep is completely fucking wrong. They use all the time.
I was gonna actually ask you about that. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's really hard for me to judge this movie on that shit because it's not about that. And that might be contradicting like the reason of this podcast, but in this, the story and the facts are way more important than the gear because it doesn't matter. I hate the fact I see a fucking 50s Jeep every time that it should be a 40s Jeep, and they probably just did that because it runs,
It's what they could find.
But yeah, I mean the other vehicles look great, and the sets look really nice too. I mean they had 2 Stewarts and everything. Like there's a lot of work went into it. Like very good work.
They set off a nuke. I mean,
with mats,
yeah.
But no, I like it, and it's funny. I did like the pacing, even though it was slow at times. But I love how the music ties into the story, and that you might be doing this thing in La La Land, but stuff's happening other places that's influencing what's going to happen in your world. So it's very interesting how connected it is. And there's so many little cool things in it, like just how they go to talk in the planes and they just turn the engine on. Like the little things to security and stuff. I thought that was really cool. And it's a good movie. It's worth a watch. And I cannot wait to see Oppenheimer. It seems like that's going to be an amazing movie, just from what we've all heard. And I really hope that it's a good film in its own right, but I don't want that to negate what this film has done. Like it's going to blow it out of the water completely. But I think it's going to be such of a different type of a movie that this one will still stand on its own legs, So it's, for what they attempted to do, they cast a great film to tell an interesting story. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It does have its little things. It is late 80s, but it's very solid. And it's a really good watch. You learn something about it and you walk away like, fuck, I'm not going to play with plutonium and 2 screwdrivers. No, that's not for me.
It blows my mind that that's how they were tweaking it, by the way. Like, just, again.
Tickling the tail.
That's what
blasted with nuclear sand, yeah.
Even if they...
And there's a plaque.
Even if they wore protective gear, like, they're still fucked.
Yeah.
Like...
There's a plaque for him. He's the first nuclear casualty of the Cold War.
Harry Daglan?
or the American casualty. I believe. Yeah. So and I think
Is
it was
that-
October of 45.
Is that who they best based their character on? Because didn't you say he didn't exist?
The John Cusack character is based on mostly Louis Slotin and Harry Daghlian, both who died from that same experiment. That both died the same way.
Oh, that's right. The other guy, the other guy died at a different.
Harry Daghlian
I don't think he was
died,
involved with the first
doing
one.
it, but he had titanium bricks when he was doing. They kind of combined both the tests in this, where they have the beryllium core and then the bricks around it. When Harry Daghlian did it, he was doing it with bricks, and he dropped one of the bricks on the pile and went critical, and he went, oh shit, just like in the movie, and like grabbed it and that fucked him. There's a famous photo where his hand is like the skin is coming off it. And then Louis Slotin was the one who did it with the screwdriver, and I think that was just a case where it was, again, he just fucked up and it fell down, and again it went critical, and he was dead. Just like a month later or something.
They all describe, like, even in the incident you talked about in Idaho, I remember they all talk about that shining, shimmering blue light.
Yeah, the ionizing of the air. Yeah.
They do have that in the film, though.
Yeah, but that's what you always get with subcritical.
That's not
like,
not Hollywood. Yeah, that's what really happens.
Yeah, it's
if
fucking
you ever
insane.
look up footage, you can go onto YouTube and look up when they turn on a nuclear reactor when it's submerged in water. You can see that boom, that blue glow.
Oh yeah. Huh.
It's called the Cherenko effect, I think. I forgot what it's called.
Really random, and then it's your turn, Birch. I walked into a nuclear reactor by accident once. It was at a decommissioned plant in Long Island, and we were playing. We had this. It was insane. They used it as an air once in its whole life. They were going to sell it, whatever. They used it for an airsoft game. It was in the middle of January, and I dressed as a fucking Russian from Chernobyl, or sorry, from Chechnya from like the 90s. We fucking did this thing. And I got lost. I was wearing the fucking big, like, Sean's Russian, like, big mop boots they used in Chechnya. And I'm, like, walking through. It's literally like CQB suits. And then I'm like, where am I? And I turn my flashlight on, and I'm like, that's the reactor pool. Fuck. It was pretty insane. But it was just, like, huge facility. And, like, we went all the way up on top of the reactor. And, like, the control room was so cool. It was built in, like, in the 70s. Oh, my God. It was fucking awesome. Like,
steel paneling, control panels and stuff. I love that
like
stuff.
it literally looked like 3 Mile Island and everything. And like, obviously everybody got up there. The first thing you did was just like Chernobyl, picking up all the phones. And
Where's
shit,
the AZ5 button?
Yeah. What was crazy is that there was scaffolding to get around the reactor because it's basically a giant reactor, and then there's a building built around it. And it was January. It was 19 degrees, and it was raining. And the fucking scaffolding to get up and down the sides of it was all ice. And obviously, it's like, you're gonna die.
And then, then Brian's supervillain story was born when he slipped and fell into a nuclear pool reactor wearing Chechnyan boots, where the boots fused with his DNA. He became the Chechnyan.
The Chechnyan
cunt.
Yeah.
What do you call it? No, for gear nerds out there, it was the Soviet NCB boots with VSR 93, 6B5. Vest and a spear helmet with an AK-74S. So it's pretty fucking dope, Cool. I got a photo of me with the spear on in the reactor, so it's pretty dope. But Birch, what do you got to say?
First of all, fucking, it cannot be beat.
Fucking dope,
Fucking dope.
Yeah,
dude.
fucking
dope. It's almost as good as it's almost as nice as a fucking cold cut sandwich,
Yeah, gabagool,
We're in the fucking Bronx, so
fucking how you
I gotta
doing,
make this one quick before I get shot or bit by a rat.
A baguette bigger than your sister's ass.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Manhattan Project.
Touche. Too fucking shit.
Touche.
No, it was again, I don't know much about the actual Manhattan Project itself, except for the basic bitch shit that I know, about just about everything. But no, it was cool to see the characters portrayed as real people and whatnot, or kind of in that sense. I just thought they could have done a lot more with the actual, like I was saying, the actual operation and how it went down, instead of wasting time on the love stories and shit like that, the background shit, and making Oppenheimer a little bit more close to how he actually was, who was a very high functioning autistic dude, in my opinion. But besides that, it was cool. Like, it got the message across of like, yeah, I mean, people that are working on this, the secrecy and everything, like with the military, and okay, we're doing this. That was okay. But yeah, it was, honest to God, this film was very slow, and like it didn't like capture my attention like even a lot of films do that I'm like not interested in, but like it can still hold my attention. So long story short, it was interesting, cool. They could have trimmed a lot of the fat. And I'm gonna give her a whopping 6.5 out of 10.
Decent. So, putting all the scores into the computer that will tell us if Oppenheimer was right and that he is now Death Destroyer of Worlds, we get 7.3 out of 10. So, definitely solid movie that's worth watching.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, something I did find out today, actually, as I was doing some research on this, is that this movie didn't do well at all in the box office. And it got a lot of bad reviews. Roger Ebert's, if I'm getting that right, the very famous guy, he gave it like a 1.5 stars out of 10 and said that they took a very serious high drama story and just made it Hollywood funny.
That's
and
well, not funny, but
I don't know. It's like
they made it Hollywood. Though.
It was a $30 million budget and they got back $4 million.
30 million?
Well, in the '89, remember?
Wait,
hold on. It's probably like 60 million today.
Repeat that again.
30 million.
And they only made 4?
Yes.
That's a lot of fucking. That's a lot of money spent and not a lot of money made.
Well, I wonder when in '89 this came out actually, because if it came out after The Wall, who's gonna give a shit? So
if it's gonna came out on any of the movies that came out in '89, that also might have to be something with it as well.
October 20th. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's
a weird release for a fucking drama.
But I can see that though, because like I was saying, is it
a month before the wall came down, so like the tail end of the Cold War. Sorry.
Yeah, no, like I can see that though. Like it doesn't surprise me, to be honest, because it's. I actually agree with Roger Ebert's statement on that, because they could have done so much more with the subject matter, right? And they chose to just again have a lot of just shit that you don't really need to make it relevant. And that's the thing, is like it could have been a lot better. And me giving it a 6.5 is very gracious, because it was well acted, very well acted.
That to me, I think, is why I gave it an 8, because I will not lie, there is some bias with it. This is the only movie, to my knowledge, that I know of
about the Manhattan Project.
About the Manhattan Project as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna get Oppenheimer, which is going to replace that. But it just is going to be very interesting to see what falls with it being 30-something years after the fact of this movie. So it'll be very interesting to see what that gives. And I do agree with you that if it was not for the actors, this would get a lot lower rating in my head.
That's the only reason I gave it above a 5, to be honest.
The only reason why I gave it an 8 was because of the actors within it.
The acting was very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So, and
God, that blows my mind. $30 million and only made 4.
Jesus Christ. I mean, in '89,
that's
30
a bigger flop
million
than Passchendaele.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
The writer-director of this movie does not have the best reputation, I have to say. So
I haven't. Well, it's funny, even for Memphis Belle, that guy hasn't really done anything since
this
then.
guy,
So
the
it's
other
like...
thing he's famous for doing is the Super Mario Brothers movie.
You
know that?
Infamous for
Yeah,
bad.
I don't know.
Big oof.
Yeah.
Big oof.
They just hired hookers, put them on set, you
Roland
know?
Joffé,
Like,
yeah, he's not known for like doing the most critically acclaimed things. So,
but the casting was really good.
yeah.
Like I did like that. Like so that's the only redeeming quality. But like if the acting would have sucked, this would have gotten below a 5. The only redeeming quality was the acting itself, and the fact that they kind of told the story a little bit, and maybe people will go and research it, like we always say. Like that's the whole goal. We're all history nerds. we all want people to like research these things. Maybe it'll get somebody to like actually look into the Oppenheimer project, or I'm sorry, the Manhattan Project. Look at Oppenheimer. Look at fucking, you know, all the shit that took place, you know, at Los Alamos, you know, at the Trinity test site and everything. So
watching this makes me want to wish it was next Friday already, so I'm in the theater watching the fucking Oppenheimer. I'm really, really looking forward to that, and that's the reason we wanted to do this week. This, guys, you know, it's. I think it's going to be probably one of the best films, if not the best film of the year.
We'll see.
you're gonna hype yourself
it's gonna
up,
be
and it's gonna be a disappointment. You're gonna be like,
Dude, it's gonna be like Tenet. You're gonna be like Tenet. You're gonna be like, what the fuck is this shit?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
We'll
Like
see,
Nolan,
you know?
for me, like, yeah, he's got some good stuff, but yeah, he's got some shit.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to see.
Where
You
are
know, hopefully,
Batman?
hopefully it's not all hype train. But if it falls into at least this category, I'd be happy. I think it'd be worth my time. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. If you haven't seen the movie, and you know, before the film comes out, Oppenheimer, definitely get a chance to see it. And just remember, are you the reporter from the New York Times? I went 3 stories. One if we succeed, one if we fail, and one if we disintegrate. See you guys next week.
That's gonna literally be our fucking project in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a rating. Otherwise, Mel Gibson won't stop screaming. If you like this content, make sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. If you want to directly support our work, make sure to check out our Patreon. All these links are in the description below. Until the next time, Scuttlebutt out.